Wisconsin Republican Senator Ron Johnson is known for saying a lot of off-the-wall things, especially with respect to the coronavirus and the January 6th attack on our Capitol.
By the way, standard gargle, mouthwash has been proven to kill the coronavirus.
The fact of the matter is, this didn't seem as like an armed insurrection to me.
On January 6th, I never felt threatened because I didn't. Had the tables been turned and President Trump won the election, and those were tens of thousands of Black Lives Matter and Antifa protesters, I might have been a little concerned.
He's a senator. Now, of course, it's fitting that Johnson would downplay the events of that day. The House January 6th committee has since revealed that he was essentially the bag man in the effort to push a slate of fake electors on former Vice President Mike Pence. Johnson addressed that this week in an interview with NBC's affiliate in Wisconsin.
I had no involvement. I received either 3 texts and I sent 2 texts, or the other way around. I mean, my lack of involvement was seconds worth of texting.
But that's still involvement.
But I didn't even know I was texted that something had to be delivered to the vice president. I didn't know what it was.
Maybe he was too busy gargling the mouthwash that gets rid of coronavirus. Now, the Tea Party senator who plotted to overturn the 2020 election is running for re-election, with the midterms now less than 6 weeks away. And make no mistake, Ron Johnson is staying true to the kinds of comments that we've come to know him for. Back in May, before the Supreme Court's Dobbs decision, Johnson said overturning Roe v. Wade might be messy, but not that big of a change. Abortion wasn't going away, after all. Well, so much for that. We're now coming up on 100 days since the unelected right-wing theocrats on the court ripped away 50 years of reproductive rights. As for the other rights potentially on the chopping block, Senator Johnson is also content to reverse progress. He recently said he'd oppose a bill to codify same-sex marriage protections after he originally said that he had no reason to oppose it. Joining me now is Johnson's Democratic opponent in this very close Senate race, Wisconsin Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes. And Lieutenant Governor Barnes, given all that I've just said, one would think that this race wouldn't be that competitive because this Tea Party senator has shown himself to be a really odd man. And yet the polls show that not only is this race razor thin, in some polls he's ahead. What's going on in Wisconsin?
Well, I'll tell you, we've seen an unprecedented amount of dark money coming into this race. They're lying to distract from Ron Johnson's failed record. As you mentioned, he's a person who says all kind of wacky things, but the reality is what he's doing in Washington is no joke. He's selling out the people of Wisconsin left and right. He's putting the health and safety of women. He's putting women's lives at risk from his dangerous positions on abortion. Ron Johnson is too extreme for Wisconsin, but there's a whole lot of money out there that wants to keep him in office, to continue to take us backwards. But we're running a real grassroots campaign, despite the fact that we're being massively outspent. 2-1 on television right now, some of the most ridiculous ads you'll ever see. Our grassroots enthusiasm can't be matched, however.
Well, I was just going to say, you're both statewide elected officials. So people have elected you both statewide. So it's not possible for a Democrat to win here. But when Ron Johnson says in July, I'm fully supportive of what the Supreme Court did, meaning overturning Roe v. Wade, I obviously confirmed the justices that handed down that court decision. His definitiveness, it seems like it would be more helpful because you've seen abortion, whether it's in Kansas or upstate New York, be very powerful in motivating women voters. Are you seeing that at all on the ground yourself?
Well, I'll tell you, here are the facts and the reality. Ron Johnson celebrated the Dobbs decision. He said that if women didn't like the 1849 criminal abortion ban we have in the state, they could just move. That is the worst position you could ever take. It is so callous, but people are responding in kind. I've seen an energy like I've never seen before in the state. A lot of folks who've never been active in politics before, stepping up, showing up to rallies, asking how they can get involved, how they can get engaged. And we're getting ready to kick off our Ron Against Roe tour because Ron Johnson needs to answer to the people for his dangerous positions on abortion. And like I mentioned before, we are getting massively outspent. If folks can go to MandelaBarnes.com today to help us out, it will go a long way to help us expand the majority, to codify abortion access and the right to choose into law once and for all.
Let me ask you this, because the attacks on you yourself, and just to be clear, this is a state that Ron Johnson won 52-47. He beat Russ Feingold twice in 2010 and 2016. He got just above 50% of the vote both times. So he's not a super popularly elected senator, but he's pretty much ensconced. But he's attacking you now, despite the fact that he opposes ending Medicare and some of his other views, about yourself tweeting liberal things, saying, I guess you like AOC. You called her my president, saying progressives who move to the center are compromising their integrity. That counts now as a scandal for you. And it's actually, I suppose, hurting you with Wisconsin voters. Why do you suppose that is? And what is your response to that?
That's not even the reality. Ron Johnson is going to say whatever to distract from his failed record. When we had an opportunity to have 1,000 good-paying jobs in Wisconsin, and Oshkosh Defense decided they wanted to move their jobs to South Carolina, Ron Johnson said we have enough jobs here. When we had an opportunity to, improve people's quality of life every step of the way, Ron Johnson has been adamantly opposed to it. He tried to send fake electors to Mike Pence. We're talking about a guy who tried to overturn an election. If he wants to compare that to some tweets, that just shows how wildly disconnected he is from reality. Ron Johnson can't be trusted to protect people here in Wisconsin, especially women. He can't be trusted to protect American democracy because, it's just not his thing. And he's proven it over and over again.
And then I guess my final question to you would be, are you concerned that Wisconsin is a state that has become so anti-progressive that just identifying you as progressive and identifying you with past positions that are progressive will be enough to keep Ron Johnson in office?
I'll tell you, we have Senator Tammy Baldwin, right? The first openly gay member of the U.S. Senate elected. And I'll tell you another thing, too. As I travel Wisconsin, this isn't about labels. It's not about left or right, red or blue. This is about the people who've been at the top because of senators like Ron Johnson specifically, and everybody else who's been left behind by his policies. Over 2 years in the U.S. Senate, his biggest achievement was the tax plan that he orchestrated $215 million in tax deductions for two of his biggest donors. At the same time, he voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act. And now he's coming after Social Security and Medicare. He's compromising people's retirement security. Ron Johnson has been in it for himself, doubled his own wealth, and is hell-bent on making everybody else's life worse.
Well, we will be watching. Wisconsin Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.